right, going into the next prediction in the list, uneventful fourth Bitcoin halving. Of course, the Bitcoin halving, not a prediction. We all know exactly where that's coming. But Matt, tell us about the specific nature of this Bitcoin halving. What are the predictions you're making around this Bitcoin halving?
So this is a pretty easy one. The prediction is that the halving will proceed without a major fork or missed blocks in April 2024. And as the new coin issuance gets cut in half, we will see unprofitable miners disconnect. They will cede market share to those with low cost power. And then after a period of digestion, the Bitcoin price should rally sharply. One difference about this cycle than previous cycles that we'll be able to observe in the markets is that publicly traded Bitcoin miners, so these are the stocks that you can buy like Riot and Marathon, like VanEck that just went public in Abu Dhabi and is now the biggest Bitcoin miner by market cap in the world. These listed miners currently control a record percentage of the hash rate. It's more than 25%. And they almost all went bankrupt last year. So they've emerged from bankruptcy with much better balance sheets. There's very little debt among these companies, and they should be set up for better performance next year.
Is that why you're saying significant gains for those low cost miners? Those are the miners you're talking about. And why does the halving benefit them? Because it seems like their revenue is getting cut. Or are you just saying the market for miners are healthier at this point and you're expecting some recovery?
The overall market for miners is healthier with stronger balance sheets. They should be able to deal with the halving better than in previous cycles. But I think the distinction that we're drawing here is that there's a couple of publicly traded miners, namely CleanSpark and Riot, that have a cost base which is well below other peers. And so the call is if we do have a kind of a trickier Q1, then it'll be those guys who have low electricity costs and better balance sheets that will outperform the field. And then after the halving, assuming the Bitcoin price acts as expected, then the miners with trickier balance sheets, higher cost electricity may take the lead.
The typical meme around the halving is that, well, we have half as much Bitcoin being issued and going to the market, therefore bullish. But that's not a very sophisticated take because there's one more variable in that, which is, well, the miners actually decide when they're going to sell that Bitcoin. And I think over the last year, miners historically are known to be actually pretty good traders. If you like interpret them as like when they decide to sell and when they decide to hold. Is there anything you can add about this nature of Bitcoin coming onto the market that is like miners electing to take on debt in this present moment of the market cycle so that they can hold their Bitcoin to sell it at a higher price and later? Is there any indication or information you can share here?
The investors in the public markets don't want to see these miners take on debt. Because they all went bankrupt last cycle. So we have seen some large purchases of ASICs. We saw one today. Riot announced a big deal, but they're net cash. Riot is. So it's not a debt problem. It's just that being net cash, having low cost power is enabling Riot to hit the pedal on the gas and buy some more machines to try to set up these market share gains that are possible in that post-halving period when the higher cost operators may be forced to shut down and stop mining.
Okay, prediction number 3. Here we go. Bitcoin will make an all-time high, I like those words, in Q4 2024.
Pretty narrow time frame.
Yeah, potentially spurred by political events and regulatory shifts following a U.S. presidential election. So we know we're getting a U.S. Presidential election. At least I sincerely hope that's the case. Potentially spurred by political events and regulatory shifts. So all-time high for Bitcoin by Q4 of 2024. And this is despite the recession prediction. Can you explain that one, Matt?
Yeah, so I think we'll get to the more details around the ETF at the end here, and that should keep the price somewhat supported in Q1. So even if we get a recession, I'm not calling for a dump, but the main call is that in the second half, Bitcoin will climb this presidential-sized wall of worry. The percentage of the global population that will be voting in legislative and presidential elections next year will hit an all-time high. We've got data going back to 1800. Next year, 45% of all humans on the earth will vote in elections. Again, that's an all-time high. With that typically comes high volatility and the prospect for significant change. So we see mounting evidence that voters and courts are rejecting the anti-growth agenda of the Green Lobby. So we expect a combative election, but Donald Trump to prevail with 290 electoral votes, regain the presidency. That will, of course, raise optimism that the SEC's hostile regulatory approach will be dismantled. And maybe I'm being too cute with the timing, but I'm calling for an all-time high for Bitcoin on November 9th. That will be exactly 3 years to the day from its last all-time high. And if you remember, Bitcoin's breakout in November 2020 also came exactly 3 years to the day from its November 2017 top. And then the cherry on the top, if BTC reaches 100K by December, Satoshi Nakamoto, Time Magazine Man of the Year.
All right.
Wait, is that three predictions there? So, Matt, you not only did you call a date, you also called Bitcoin high, and you also called Trump as the presidential winner, and then you called the magazine cover of Time. That's at least three there, my friend.
Wish list predictions, they start to blend a little bit when you're fully invested in this asset class.
All right. Let's keep this going. Ethereum's market position behind Bitcoin. You are predicting that Ethereum will not flip Bitcoin in 2024. Flipping is not on the menu next year, but still will outperform tech stocks. Unpack this one for us.
Sure. I remember being on a stage with you, David, a couple of years ago, and we were
in New
asked,
York, right?
Yeah, that's right. And, will ETH flip Bitcoin? Everyone on the stage raised their hand, and I said, no, I'm going to stick with it. So
that was a flex,
no,
David.
it won't
I don't know if you
ever,
felt that.
or no, it won't soon.
Not next year. Not next year.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I can get behind that, sadly.
Yeah.
Matt, David is not wrong yet, okay? He's not wrong yet.
My call is that there's more money in TradFi looking to get involved in crypto than there is in crypto that can be recycled. And in the current regulatory regime, Bitcoin's regulatory status is unique, and its energy intensity is also unique. And it's the energy intensity that is attracting this interest from quasi-state entities in Latin America, in the Middle East, in Argentina. So we expect Argentina will join El Salvador, the UAE, Oman, and Bhutan as the fifth country to sponsor Bitcoin mining at the state level. We expect Argentina's state-owned energy giant YPF will mine digital assets using stranded methane and gas. And so similar to past cycles, during a halving year, Bitcoin will lead the market, and then post-halving, the value will flow into smaller tokens. So ETH will start outperforming Bitcoin post-halving. It may outperform for the year, but it's a high hurdle on a flippening. And we also expect ETH will lose market share to other smart contract platforms with less uncertainty surrounding their scalability roadmap, like Solana.
Okay, hold on. This is not the same sounds that I've heard other people make predictions around the Bitcoin ETF and Ethereum ETF. Ethereum, ESG, friendly, ESG approved compared to Bitcoin because of Bitcoin's energy consumption. Also, external trad investors enjoy Ethereum more because of its similarity to a high growth tech stock in comparison to Bitcoin. And so what some of the rumblings I've heard is that when we have both a Bitcoin and an Ethereum ETF, Ethereum will have outsized flows versus Bitcoin in relation to its market cap. What would you say to this alternative prediction?
I'll push back on that. The first is that I don't believe in ESG. I think the ESG narrative is fading. The courts in Canada have dismantled Trudeau's green agenda. The UK Prime Minister has backed away from their green agenda. South Korea has just reinstituted plastic straws, baby. So that story is going away, right?
Bullish carbon use. Wow.
The other wrinkle here is that, especially for these ETFs in the US, it doesn't appear like there will be staking involved in those ETFs because of the regulatory uncertainty. So I'm not sure that the product will have quite the same appeal as the buy and hodl Bitcoin ETF, at least in the early days.
Matt, do you think that Ethereum will get an ETF in 2024? What's your over-under on that prediction? It's not one of your 15, I don't think, but I'm curious about that.
I do. I think the deadlines for the SEC to rule on the spot applications that are pending, which include ours, is May. So there is some time.
So that'll be good for Ethereum. And you're saying that in this prediction, not good enough to flip in Bitcoin and not good enough to preserve its market share in the face of what you call growing competition from other smart contract platforms. That's the prediction for 2024.
Precisely.
If you enjoyed all of that, then you'll absolutely love the Bankless newsletter. Join over 300,000 fellow readers, all for free. Click below to sign up.